the end of Women's History Month here in March, we close this episode by talking about us as women, our body, our nutrition, how that's tied to mindset and what we think and feel about our body. We're going to talk about that with the expert right after this. What is mindset? Our mindset is based on what we believe, and anything we believe in, we put into motion. I have spent my life putting the mindset of perseverance into motion, and now I am here today to share my journey along with others whose mindsets have changed the course of their lives. Hi, I'm Mindset Coach Lorraine Lindsey, and I believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. So are you ready? Welcome back to another episode of the Lorraine Lindsey podcast. This is the Mindsetters, where we believe that if you can change your mind, you have the power to change your life. And today we're going to tap into the mindset as it entails health, wellness, our mental health, and how that's attached to our physical health, what that looks like in all aspects, not just working out and proper nutrition, but the real deep conversations that us as women struggle with when it comes to having a healthy weight, having healthy choices in our lives. And I have this amazing woman in studio. It's the first time she's joining us, Miss Kelsey Lane Davidson. And so before we get into this conversation, let me give you a little bit about Miss Kelsey's background. Kelsey Lane Davidson is a strength and conditioning coach and holds numerous certifications and specialties in the fitness industry. She has been coaching and training clients for over 10 years in corporate, private, and collegiate settings. Kelsey had a desire to work more one-on-one with clients, so in 2017, she started her company, Kelsey Lane Fitness. She coaches her clients on proper body movement and teaches them how to create healthier lives for themselves. Her passion for educating her clients led to hosting her own podcast, Be Unapologetically You, and also sharing daily tips and videos on her Instagram at Kelsey Lane Fitness. In addition to her certifications, Kelsey holds a degree in Bachelor's of Science in Animal Science with a minor in accounting from Oklahoma State University and a Master's of Science in Kinesiology from Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. Lastly, she worked in higher education as an academic advisor and retention specialist for 6 years. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, reading with her husband, and is a dog mom to 2 rescue dogs, T-Rex and Schaefer.
Yep, Sheffer's the bomb, man.
Sheffer. Well, thank you so much. A little background on how you and I met. We recently did, I was emceeing of an event. It was for National Women's Conference or whatnot.
Yeah, it was for mindful businesswomen.
Yes, thank you. And it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And I was asked last minute to join, but it was such an honor to be there. But I got to talk to some people who were on the panelists, and you were one of those people. And I remember listening to you and you sharing some very profound things about health, connection to health. Not only that, but just one of the things that really resonated with me with what you said was being busy and keeping yourself busy. And if you ignore your health will come knocking at your door. And you had personal experience with that. And so I wanted really to talk a lot about what health means to us as women, far beyond the superficial. Because I think that sometimes even when we're looking at and comparing ourselves to other people, to other women especially, and we see what we think is health, sometimes it doesn't equate to that. You know, it's a very unrealistic ideal to what really embodies health. So before I go into questions, what do you want to say just right off the bat?
I think anybody that survived the 90s as a female is scarred for life because we went through the trauma and the rail, and being skinny is better than what it tastes. That taste, a moment on lips, forever on the hips. Those types of things.
Right.
That's trauma associated with it. But I always think that it's that comparisonitis that we go through, but then it's also this mental image we have in ourselves of this is what we should be, and we're back in that should, and it's is that what we should be, or should we actually really listen to what our body's asking of us? Should we actually address the mental health that's in the room? Mm-hmm. Should we actually learn how to take care of ourselves versus this influencer, that influencer, this book, this TV show, even this show? We should really bring into question and is that innately true for us? Mm-hmm. Or are we going to discount anything that takes too long to get to where we want to go and doesn't require that effort from us?
And being realistic about it, one of the things I heard you say while you were just saying that was having these healthy, realistic ideals about what we're supposed to look like, because sometimes there's so much conflict with that. And I find what is interesting, like, for example, when I grew up, I'm biracial, and I with that, my mother's a Jamaican woman, and that side of my family were very curvaceous people. And when I was growing up, like you said, the 90s and the
Oh, man.
2000s, well, more specifically in the 90s, when I started developing, I was, I had a butt and this and that. And at that time,
Yes.
I had this obsessiveness, and even my mother did, I remember Dexatrim was the diet back
Yes.
then, and really wanting to be this really rail thin, tiny person, because that's what was portrayed, and having an identity with beauty to that, and doing unhealthy things to aspire for that. And then what was interesting is that fast forward, the look that I was running away from became the look that everybody was aspiring to be, and having unhealthy attachments to that. So not only does it lead for some people augmenting their body, but practicing unhealthy self-images, and then also unhealthy literal things like diet and exercise and things like that. So let's go right into the questions that I have written out here. So can you share some common misconceptions people have about fitness and nutrition that actually hinder their progress?
Absolutely. First one is that it's just calories in, calories out. Absolutely, yes, that is true. But, B-U-T. If your body is not in a safe system, in a safe environment, it feels safe, you will not get where you want to go. Because let's just give an example here for those of us that survived the 90s and 2000s and my younger crowd here. If you get to a point where you ate so little for so long, your body's just going to be waiting for that next meal, that next point of being safe. So you have to build that relationship back to be able to get it to do what you want to do. And so if you spent 9-10 years, controlling what you ate and everything else, and then expecting your body to do what you want, I'm sorry, my friend, you have to give it time to heal. You have to give it time to realize it is safe. Just like our minds. We don't go to one therapy session and be done.
Right.
It works the same with our bodies. Our bodies are a system that has to feel safe in order to get it to do what we want to do. I think another common misconception is that more is always better. We see this with exercise for those that may have had exercise addiction, or we see the influencers that are on social media. More is not always better. Always doing HIIT, always lifting super heavy, never having any days off, never resting enough, doing twice a day, like 75 hard can be a great option, but it can be a horrible option too. And so I think it's just really important to realize that everything has context. And you have to figure out what context works for you. But more is not always better. Less is not always better. And you have to take care of the system first before you get anywhere.
And also too, to add to that, another question to add to that is that I think the misconception also is that one size fits all.
Oh God.
And I've had to learn that quite a bit, because I was in the fitness world for a while. I competed in fitness competitions, and there was that life, and then what that did to my body after.
Absolutely.
My adrenals were shot. I gained weight that I just could not get rid of, no matter how strict I was with diet and exercise, and not really understanding the hormonal side of that.
Bingo.
And trying to do what that person does or this person does, and saying, why is this not working? So kind of elaborate a little bit on why one size does not fit all.
Absolutely. It's like saying that we came from the same school and learned the same things. We can obviously, like, if just a really literal example, me growing up in West Texas is going to be very different than somebody that grew up in London, England.
Right.
Just from the innate of the environment that we were in, the people we were surrounded by, and the opportunities that we were given, not including societal opportunities and things that we have that are definitely a part of it. And if we ignore those, then of course we're going to get this one size fits all thing. But if we take those in context, then it makes way more sense that one size doesn't fit all. And also, like you brought up your competing background. I have one too. It left me with horrible hormones as well. I had adrenal issues. I had disordered eating. I had body dysmorphia. And then I wondered why I didn't like how I looked, or how my mental health went, or why I had trouble eating healthy, and that whole food relationship was wrecked because I put myself in that industry and had no understanding of the ramifications that it was going to put me under. Of course I'm going to come out wrecked.
Right.
It'd be different if I was informed But there wasn't that type of information then as that we have now. I mean, the whole industry's changed in the last decade,
Right.
much less. And I feel like there's way more understanding on the hormonal piece, but we still have so much work to do there to understand how important our hormones are, not just as women, but men too.
Right.
Men have hormones. They run on a 24-hour cycle. We run on a 28 to 31, depending on your cycle. So yes, we're going to be a different person every day as a woman. Absolutely, you're going to be a different person. And men, you will be the same every day about that same time. So it makes way more sense in that sense once you have context.
So I have a question for you, because I think this is the big question that I've heard, that I hear women talk about. Like I have a friend, for example, and she's incredibly fit. She is the poster child for fitness. She's very disciplined, and it's her way of life, and it's been her way of life for as long as I've known her and far beyond that time frame. And sometimes her approach with people who do not have that level of discipline is just get up and walk, just get up and move, just get up and do this, just get up and do that. And for women that are busy on the go, women who have children that are running around or lives, whatever, you'll hear women say, of course, I want that. I want to make this choice, eating this healthy food or doing this or be like you are, but I just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, and I'll, the comeback is always, you always can have time. You always can make time. So someone who's overwhelmed by that, saying, I know I need to eat right, I know I need to exercise and all of that, and they have to do it all. They think they have to do it all. For a woman like that, that's in that situation, where would she start? What would be a good place to start? Would it be the nutrition first, then the exercise, then the nutrition? Is it the breakfast first? I mean, where do we start with this to get on track?
Two things.
Okay.
One, you have to believe that you can do it.
I love
We
that.
absolutely have to start with the mind. If you can believe that it can happen, then absolutely it's going to happen. You just have to let go of the timeline.
Right there, that part.
Yep. You have to let go of the timeline, and you got to let go of the how at the same time, because if you will allow yourself to decide what you want and be okay with it and not judge yourself, and then look for the next best step versus all the other steps afterwards, you will get so much further.
Yeah.
The second piece is, whether you should do nutrition or fitness or mindset, do what feels like the easiest thing for you to do first.
I love that.
Why does it matter if it's fitness or nutrition or whatever the case may be? Pick whatever's the easiest domino. Work on that domino, then go to the next domino. Most of the people that come to me, fitness is the easiest domino for them to start. Then we start the nutrition domino, because one leads to the other, that leads to the other. Ideally, if I could say, I could put it all in the world and this is how we do this and wave my magic wand, I would have you do your mindset homework and the therapy and all the stuff that we need to do. If I could say this is what we're doing first, that would be it. But that's not how that works. Back to context. Back to what's going to be the most viable step for each person. And for some, you have to give them an action item. Then their brain starts to realize, oh yeah, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can show up. Oh yeah, I am worthy of being the person that I want.
Right, that part right there.
And I can show up for that now.
I love that you said that, because it allows yourself to give yourself some grace.
Absolutely.
And I think that, again, we think that we have to do it all at once.
Nope.
And I love how you just simplified it. Say, well, what's the thing that's the easiest thing for you to do first?
Absolutely.
Because once you start to feel some level of progress, then you start to grow and you start to move. And I think that sometimes when we try to just jump in all at once, and for some people that works, it's very effective, right?
Absolutely.
But then you can potentially run into burnout. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I have seen that, especially in fitness, or just with friends who they get to a point where they're fed up with their weight and their diet and just the way they're feeling, right? Sometimes it isn't even what they physically look like, because they can look totally healthy to everybody else, but they feel like crap. But they just go balls to the wall, like they go all in, and they get this momentum. And then when they start to plateau, they just get burnt out. So why is it important? Or maybe the better question is, how do people prevent those kind of things from happening?
It's such a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, I know, but you're ready for it.
So here's the thing that we learn through experience. And I can tell you what not to do, but for some of you, and I'm one of those people, we got to do it and realize, oh yeah, she was right. I went a little too far. And that is burnout and that type of thing. And then others, it's just a matter of you start to learn what the signs are. So big things that we see in burnout is inability to focus, not having enough energy, not able to sleep. We see a lack of appetite. We start to see some mental health issues. You start to lose, and it starts to resemble depression. Let's kind of go with that. It does start to resemble depression because we also start to lose our passions. Things that we once really enjoyed, we no longer enjoy. Things of that sort are some of the symptoms of burnout. But then it's like the physiological piece. Like all of a sudden you're like, why am I struggling to get up in the morning, no matter how much food or coffee or walks or whatever the case may be? And then it like really becomes defeating, when in reality it's like, okay, this means I have to step back. All it is a signal. And we start to add meaning to signals versus like, okay, what's going on? Where is this coming from? What could potentially be causing it? And being not judgmental, but more of like evaluating. Am I going to go right? Am I going to go left? Not right means death and destruction. Left means success and failure and whatever the case may be. But like just right, left.
I love what you said. You said we look at the signals and we give meaning to it. When the signals are just there to be clues for you, for something to be actionable.
Exactly.
You know, so it's like, okay, I get a signal. I don't have to give a doomsday meaning to it. I can say the signal's here for a reason. What is the action I need to take? And I think that some people don't, most people, a lot of, and I'm guilty of that as well, is having signals and needing to give it significance for some reason, instead of just seeing it for what it is and saying, okay, there's an action I need to take here.
Absolutely.
And that action could be take a step back, take a pause, really check in. You know, the signal could be a check-in thing. I think that's really good, actually. My next question is, many individuals, they struggle with consistency when it comes to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. What strategies do you recommend for staying motivated and committed long term?
Motivation and lack of motivation is all tied to your why. Why are you showing up, or why are you not showing up? And if you feel like you're not showing up, you are not clearly tied to your why, or your why has shifted. That's the big thing. And then we get mad when our why shifts. So let me give an example here. I had a client early on, and she had just been through a divorce. Her whole world had changed. She went from working from home, having to go back into corporate life, everything else. But the reason why she showed up to train with me, because I was still in person at the time, was because she wanted to become the hottest version of herself to show him off.
The revenge bod.
Oh, man, absolutely. But when we got there, then she had trouble showing up because her why shifted. And that was a hard pill to swallow. When that carrot transforms into the stick. And are you okay with the stick? Or do you need to look at what the new carrot is? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong. The carrot and the stick works. But you have to identify what those are. And her new why, after we did some work, was her children, her family, to her ability to live life on her own terms. Let me give another example. I had a client who wanted to go to Europe. She was a much older lady, and she wanted to have independence on there. And one thing that she really struggled with was her weight training. Well, we talked and we talked and we figured out she wanted to be able to put her own carry-on bag in the overhead bin by herself, because that was such a sign of independence for her. It also meant she knew she was strong enough to carry that suitcase up the part of the stairs where you couldn't get an elevator in parts of the world. All of a sudden, her why became so clear, and it became so easy for her to strength train.
Interesting.
Because she became so clear with that. And so taking time to truly identify it. So for those that want a really tactile skill, get a piece of paper, write it down, come back to this part of the podcast. I want you to write down why that you want to do something. Number 1, write it again. 2, why 3, write it again. Why 4, write it again. Why 5, write it again. Why 6, why 7. Do it 7 times, and usually by the 7th one, you're pretty clear, and you may not like the answer, but that is the reality. And you need to be okay with that. And you may have to come back to it. You may not get all the way to 7 whys. You may get to 3 or 4, but be okay with that. And that's
I love that.
Clear.
I tell people this all the time. Is I call it the bean dip. You got to bean dip it. 7 layers,
yes.
baby. Ask yourself 7 times why. And they always ask me, well, why? Why do I have to ask the why? And I'm like, because you got to get to the root. And what I love, I'm writing stuff down as you're talking, is like, so powerful for you to say and to acknowledge the fact that your why can shift.
Absolutely.
What has compelled you here may be different here. Sometimes we're leveraged with pain, and our why is that, but that can only sustain for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is like being glued to the goal and the outcome and being intentional about what that means for you. Because sometimes I say, okay, my why is to get to this goal. And for the purpose of this conversation, we're talking about fitness, but this, you could plug in, insert
Absolutely.
anything for that, right? And so the goal is this. And what I have learned in my life through my own personal experience is when I'm chasing goals, when I hit the mark, first of all, I have a fantasy of what I think that's going to be for me. And most of the time it isn't that.
Mm-hmm.
And that can become a setback because I had unrealistic expectations of what it was going to be like when I hit that goal. And I've really learned to take a seat back and say, the goal is something to strive for, but the process is what I have to appreciate more,
Absolutely.
you know, because then it helps me to understand and track my progress, track my ability to have growth and that kind of thing. And saying, okay, when I hit this goal, be ready for the next thing.
Yeah.
And then trusting the process. So how important would you say it is for people out there when they're looking for that consistency to trust the process and being realistic about the process?
Absolutely. I would really say that you need to not celebrate just the end, but along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So something I've been doing a lot of like psychology research recently because when you work in fitness, you don't just work the body. Everybody thinks it's just picking up heavy things, putting it back down, making you run from point A to point B. That is not the case. I have to get your mind behind what we're doing in order for you to get to where you want to go. And one of the things I feel like we don't celebrate enough, especially when it comes to consistency, is just the repetition of doing something over time and not having a full tie to what it looks like. So if you do it every day, great. If you do it every other day, if you do it once a week, the fact that you're increasing your frequency is something to celebrate there. Back to let go of the timeline. Because so let's take, for example, you're a mom, you have 2 littles, and you want to start working out. Okay, cool. Maybe the first week you only get 1 workout in. You need to be celebrating that because that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The next week you get 1. Okay, the next week both kids are sick and you're on your deathbed. Okay, well, that happens. The next week you get another. And then the next week, oh, look, we had 2. And then like celebrate that. Frequency, regardless of its time window, is just as valuable.
Absolutely.
And then it comes to it, but celebrate those little wins to the big win. I would also say I'm the reverse. I forget to celebrate when I hit the end cap. I'm too busy looking at the next goalpost. And so I would also say for those that are like me, please celebrate. Please acknowledge what you did. Please acknowledge and let yourself feel the emotions. Don't be a robot kind of thing. You actually have to celebrate your accomplishments just as much as you are celebrating your progress as you go through in that piece.
How do you challenge or how do you manage? Because I truly believe that health and nutrition is very tied into your value and your self-worth, right? And because I feel like, at least for me, and I can only speak from I always try to make sure I reference that I'm speaking from my perspective, that when I'm not feeling as worthy and as valuable, I tend to see there a decline in how I'm taking care of myself, right? And really knowing that if I'm not doing these things to feel healthy and strong, because I actually love when I feel healthy and strong, then I need to check in what's going on with me mentally and emotionally.
Yes.
Because they're very much correlated, right? My friend likes to say the issues are in the tissues, right?
Absolutely.
But my question that I've actually seen quite a bit is when we get on these journeys, we have certain habits that led us to the other pathway. And so when you start out on a fitness journey or on a health and wellness journey, I prefer to call it, I have done this and I've seen like even friends of mine pick up bad habits while they're doing a good habit and then getting frustrated because they don't realize, why aren't I losing weight? Well, I worked out today for an hour, but I went and got the quote unquote smoothie that's really just a vanilla milkshake, right? And so connecting those dots, how do you get someone to connect the dots? Because again, if you're going to increase your workout, for example, your appetite's going to increase.
Absolutely.
So talk about those kind of things so that it kind of connects the dots. I don't know if I'm asking it correctly, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm saying.
I think I get the gist. I think that it's back to the domino. I think we have to realize that we have to master each domino just like we master a level. So like when we start with a pyramid, we have to build the foundation. and solidify that foundation. Then we build on to the next thing. So for example, for somebody that's wanting to do fitness and fitness was their first step, we're going to start there. Okay, we're going to establish their movement routine. What are their workouts going to be? We're going to master that. We're going to work through the trial and error of when the weeks go to heck in a basket and then the weeks are successful. Then maybe we start nutrition. And then we work on, okay, so what I like to start with, so that those that want actionable items, I'm going to ask you to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day, no matter who you are. I'm going to ask you to eat a vegetable and a piece of fruit every day. I'm going to ask you to eat protein. I don't care if it's vegan or animal-based, whichever the case may be. And we're going to start with those foundations, and we're going to work on increasing your servings before we start doing anything we see popular right now, like macros or calories or whatever the case may be. We're going to build the foundational pieces before you start counting anything. And so that piece, because then once you have those pieces set, then you can start to tweak. So a really good example is if we look at the world of bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is such an interesting case study because you notice the ones that are most successful have those foundational habits on cue. They will do it, like everything is so dialed in. And not everybody needs to be that way, but here's what we want to see. They don't undervalue the foundational pieces to get to where they want to go. They understand they have to move, but they also understand they have to sleep. They also understand they have to hydrate. They also understand they have to eat a nutritious diet. They can't just eat Quest potato chips or anything else, like, which is fine. But, if that's all you're eating all day, we have some questions to ask you.
Yeah.
So like things of that, like don't underestimate the value of your foundational pieces and then start to look to tweak. So if you say you get a smoothie and you realize it's not a good choice, what is the next best option on that menu? I'm not saying don't go. What is the next best option?
Love that.
Let me tell you a story. I graduated in undergrad in 3 years because I'm a psychopath. I worked full-time. I went to school full-time. Please don't do that to yourself. Please don't do that to yourself. One thing I realized after being in corporate America, I worked in higher ed for years, is I totally lost all of my habits and foundational piece after being an athlete for 20 years of my life. And I had to rebuild and start from ground zero. And one of the first things I realized is that I was trying to do too much at once. And so I had to think, okay, how can I make this smaller? How can I make this easier for me to show up? The easiest thing I did is I started with sodas. I grew up in West Texas, y'all. We like Dublin Dr. Pepper, and we gonna drink it. But I started with just, this is gonna sound weird, but just roll with me. Hear this tread through it. I started going to diet soda, and I made that switch. Then I went to clear soda. Then I started to look at healthier soda options, big quotations for those that maybe are listening. And then I started looking for sparkling water because all of a sudden I actually liked how it tasted. And then I went to regular water with fruit and the little clear color packets and everything else. And now I just drink regular water. If I would have gone from soda to water, it would have been a train wreck.
Right.
A train wreck. But I acknowledge, okay, that's not going to work for me. What's the next best thing?
And
that's what it is. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is pick the next best thing. Don't go from point A to point B.
It's the compound effect.
Yes, absolutely.
I tell people that all the time. It's like, let's say you had a 12-week goal or plan, and you just tweaked one small thing that you knew that you could do, and you could measure progress in that. And you're like, all right, this week it's that one thing. And then the next week you're like, I did that. I can continue to do that. Let me pick one more thing.
Exactly.
Within 12 weeks, you have 12 new things that you're doing. And I can assure you, you will see change and differences happening because of those small little tweaks. And so I love how you said that. It's like, all right, if I know that if the signal tells, if I'm not, I'm going to step into this conversation from the beginning. Oh, I have a signal. I'm going to choose not to give it meaning that's doom or gloom. I'm going to take that signal as a sign to be actionable in something. So I'm not feeling good. What do I think is the problem?
Yes.
Right now in this moment. Oh, it's maybe the sodas. I can't give up my soda. I have this habit. This is when I drink my soda. It relieves my stress. Be honest with yourself why you have to have it.
Yes.
I think that's another component, right? Is really tapping in and saying, the truth is, this is my little bit of a security blanket. It gives me feelings and makes me whatever, and be honest with yourself and say, okay, what's the thing that I can replace? Like keep the habit, but
Yes,
insert something different.
absolutely.
And I love that you said that because I feel like it simplifies it and it makes it tangible. It makes it like I can do this. It doesn't make it seem overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I would also add to that, one thing I realized going through that journey is the reason why I wanted soda, it was the caffeine and the sugar and the calories. When I looked at my whole situation, one, I wasn't fueling myself enough. I wasn't eating enough and I wasn't having enough water. That alone, as I started to make that adjustment, made the desire for that soda to go away, at least physiologically. Mentally, it had its own work to be done, but like realizing what we're substituting for, I find for people that start to decrease their alcohol intake, they're shocked at how much they eat because they're having to replace those calories that they're normally drinking with food.
Mm.
And then they're like, well, man, I'm eating a lot. And it's like, yes, that's a good thing. If just worry about having nutrition dense, our body will balance itself out. Like have faith. It knows how to do it. We've been alive for centuries. It can do this. You just have to have faith and believe and
I like that
and be okay with
Texan.
the uncomfort. Yeah, it comes out hard, man.
All right, so let's talk about the allure of quick fixes, right? With weight loss, drugs, or injections. It's very, very popular right now. What's my question? What are the potential risks and drawbacks of relying on these shortcuts, and how do they compare to sustainable lifestyle changes? And again, this is the big thing, right? It's like we've got all these injections now that you're seeing radical changes in what's happening in people's bodies in relatively short periods of time. And then even the science and what people are talking about are saying different things than what we're used to in conversation. And it's intriguing to me, but I can also see how it can be incredibly frustrating for people, confusing for people. For some people, there are epiphanies that are happening. So what is your overall take on that, especially for people who they cannot afford, or maybe they're skeptical. Like, I don't know if I want to put this stuff in my body. I don't know what the long-term effects are. So what would you say to these shortcuts? Because I kind of consider them shortcuts. For some, it's a miracle for them. They need it. It's a
Absolutely.
necessary thing for them. So I don't want to discredit that because I'm certainly not educated enough, or I'm certainly not a doctor to speak on that. But what are your thoughts just in general?
I feel like the shortcut is learning how to do the foundational pieces and show up for yourself. When we start to add these other things, all of a sudden the speed bumps become Empire State Buildings, and then we have to work on that piece. But again, modern medicine is beautiful just as much as holistic medicine. And my other question would be, if you're looking at that, is why, and not the why you're going to tell me, the why that's going in the back of your head. Why do you feel like that's the path? Why do you feel like that's the only way? And I would also ask, well, I've tried everything. Really? Really? Have you focused on sleeping 7 to 9 hours every night? That's one of the biggest things outside of food and water for my clients is sleeping.
Mm.
If I get my clients to sleep, oh my Lord, we would take over the world at that point. Like sleep, drink your water, move your body. I'm not asking you to do a HIIT workout. Go for a walk every day.
Right.
You know, take the kids, put them on a bike. I mean, was with my family the other day, and we had one of my small, tiny humans that are not my own on a leash, but that's what we took to get the job done. And that's what it is. So like, and then the other thing that comes into there, who are you comparing yourself to that drives this need to want to do that? We have social media now that is such a component part. Like it's beautiful. We have access. I wouldn't have a job without it now. I wouldn't live here. I wouldn't do what I do without social media.
Right.
I will acknowledge the elephant in the room. But how is it impacting you and your choices? Is that really the best choice for you? Do you understand your blood work? What does it look like that drives that? Is there another root cause?
Right.
I find for a majority of people, there's a root cause that's causing the issues. For those that don't know my current story, I moved here less than 2 years ago after working in a corporate setting, and that job was great at that point in time. But I came here and realized I was so burnt out to the point I didn't want to pet my dogs. I didn't want to spend time with my husband. I didn't want to see my best friend that for the first time in 20 years I lived in the same town as. Like red light, red light, red light. You want to talk about, left, right turn? There was a stop sign that was beating me in the head with like a 4x4 in the middle of my head. Something was wrong. And so we started looking for answers, and we did my blood work. I had no estrogen, no progesterone,
Wow.
no testosterone. No wonder I didn't want to see anybody. No wonder I wasn't seeing any results with my body and my mind or anything, because my hormones were so out of whack.
Wow.
And so and this is my story, find your result, but I just want you to ask these questions. If I would have gone to one of these drugs, would that have perpetuated that greater problem in the system or provided a solution? So, but I would really recommend is looking at the root cause,
Right.
not the root cause you think it is, like doing the hard work, getting the blood work with somebody that will actually do a full hormone panel. We see commonly in women's health, they do just T1, T2, T3, and TSH. And there's one more I'm forgetting for those that think, oh, you should know this off the top of your head. I have it written down for a reason, man. I have other states in my brain space, but like they'll just do the surface level
Right.
hormones. They won't do the stuff that are your transmitters and their alternate forms where you can actually see that, oh, you're transforming, but it's not absorbing. Those are your issues in processing
And
things.
you know what's frustrating about that, just to kind of tap onto that a little bit? Because I remember like last year, that's what I did. I said, I need to just get a full like workup of blood and see what's happening, what's going on with me. Because I'm struggling with, again, after fitness and doing that, just putting on a certain amount of weight. And it all kind of actually triggered when I had a blood clot.
Yep.
And I was hospitalized for a blood clot, and I was put on, and it was a result of having an anaphylactic reaction to a medication. So my lungs so they gave me steroids and all kinds
Yes.
of, and I was on blood thinners for a period of time. And after that had happened, I just kind of just put on this weight like overnight that I could not get off my body. And again, I know the things that will make you lose weight, the nutrition, the blah, 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 and it just wasn't coming off. Plus, added that I'm older and that kind of thing. So I
Yes.
said, let me do this blood work and really, really look and see what's happening with me. The frustrating part is that, your health insurance doesn't want
Nope.
you to pay, they won't approve you, I should, at least in my case, to get that next level of blood work
Correct.
done. And it's very expensive out of pocket to do it for people who can't afford that. And it's
Yeah.
very frustrating because it's like you want to get ahead of that. You want to find out what's going on a deeper level. I think more and more women are becoming more aware of, the power of hormones.
Yes.
And just not being able to have the health insurance
Yes.
component participate in
Yeah.
that. So what happens to people like that? What would you suggest? Is there ways for them to get that kind of blood work? Like, how do they answer that question when insurance says no?
You typically have to pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
And that becomes an access question. And I hate that that's the answer.
Yeah.
But that is the reality. Sometimes you have to work hard. Like, for example, I had to save for a year and a half to pay for my own blood work.
But you made that a priority.
Yeah, because I knew that was the only way I was going to get the answers. I had tried everything else.
I love that you said that.
But that was my reality. And thank God I did. Because I would have just put myself in a deeper hole and it would have caused a bigger problem. I probably would have been hospitalized at that point. Like having that information, that blood work is like the absolute game changer. And it's such a relief because so many people don't get relief. So many people don't know what the root cause is, and some may never. But they can figure out a lot of other questions, answers in the process by getting the right work. I have to work with like an integrative health practitioner, somebody that has the licensure to call those types of things. There's a lot of people in the space that this beautiful social media world you can connect with that actually can do the work and read the labs. That can get that. If you guys follow me, you can send me a message. I'll give you some referrals out there because it's going to change all the time. Because as I find good people, I always refer out because that's not my space, but I also know how important it is.
Right. And that's the thing, that's key. And I think that we have to be, I'm just going to keep it real. We have to stop neglecting ourselves, right? Yep. We'll go and spend money on the shiny object all day long. We'll go put the Botox and the boobs at the butt or whatever the money we're spending, but we're not taking that same initiative to invest in ourselves, you know? And I think for some, as long as I feel good, I'm fine, and we kind of just want to ignore it. For some others, it's just scary. Like, what if there's something else? And it's like, yeah, but get ahead of it.
Yeah.
Preventative care is so much better than curative care.
Well, and we're seeing that now with the fertility crisis we're having. We're seeing that now that all of a sudden it's like, why am I struggling to become pregnant? Or you'll see it where we're having male infertility. Like it's both has the equation. It's not just women. It's not just men. Everybody's a part of this equation. And there's things that you can do to help yourself too. And it's not always more and more and more. A majority of our clients that work through one of the programs I consult in, it's actually less, less, less. Like doing less is a big answer for that. But like a lot of time just taking some time to find the root cause and doing the work, and you can ultimately still get what you want. You just have to be open to maybe a different path than you originally
And people will be so
realized.
surprised how sometimes it's that one lock or that one key to that one lock, and
Absolutely.
you turn it, and then all of a sudden you start to see your body's like, thank you.
Yeah,
And it just starts to respond.
it's true.
Here's another question for you. Weight loss journeys often have or involve setbacks and plateaus, right?
Mhm.
How do you support clients in navigating these challenges and staying resilient in their pursuit of health and wellness?
First thing you have to do is define what is success.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Because if you don't define what success is, then you're never going to hit it. Number two would be realistic. So commonly we see, I had a client message me a little while ago and asked, hey, I have this vacation in 6 weeks and I want to lose 50 pounds. And I said, okay, let me break this down for you.
Very
And like,
ambitious.
and it is ambitious, but if you don't know the math, it doesn't seem ambitious. So let's break this down. So let's say you want to lose 50 pounds. And I'm not going to worry about the timeline right now. Let's just worry about we want to lose 50 pounds. A healthy weight loss for women typically is anywhere from half a pound to a pound a week. So let's say we do a pound a week. That means it's a minimum of 50 weeks typically to get to where you want to go. Now, if we include that you may have some off weeks, because progress isn't linear, you're going to go up, down. You also are cycling, whether you are a fertile female or you're postmenopausal, you still have a cycle, it just runs a little differently postmenopausal. So we have that. So let's just say that gives us another 6 weeks. We're at 56 weeks right there to lose 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you realize that that's what is sustainable without you doing any quick fixes or anything like that, then the timeline becomes a lot more realistic in that sense. But it also begs to differ. Why do you feel you need to lose 50 pounds for that event? What about it is so triggering for you? Is it because you want to present yourself in the best way possible, which is great, but at your own detriment in your ability to enjoy that event or that life event? Like we see that a lot for people going into weddings and things of that sort. It's like to your detriment at that point, then that's not
Right.
okay either. But here's the realistic, and here is the information I would give, and here's where we'd go from there. After that, it would just be working on the foundational principles. Are you sleeping? Are you managing your stress? Not eliminating, managing your
Right.
stress. Are you eating? Because you still have to eat to lose weight. I'm going to say this because I will die on this hill. If you are eating 1,200 calories, that's how much a toddler needs. And you're an adult, you're not a toddler. You need to eat more than a toddler.
That is so hard. That is a big one for me.
Yep.
So I kind of want to, before I get into that, I want to say something about
Mhm.
what you said about the realistically 50 pounds is going to take you
Mhm.
50 weeks, right?
Yep.
I know a lot of people who are listening to this. That is that thorn. That is that
Absolutely.
conversation that they know, that they really know. They know that it's going to take time. And one of the things that I have learned through interviewing people through past careers and stuff like that is the most successful people that I've ever met have this really unique ability for delayed gratification.
Absolutely.
Right? And a lot of us don't. Most of us don't.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear, oh my gosh, 50 pounds, 50 weeks, that's a year. It's
Mhm.
damn near a year. You already start to feel discouraged before you even
Mhm.
get started because it seems like the end goal is way too
Mhm.
far away that it just seems like, well, what's the point? Why would I even do it? Why do I, wait a year? And I'm just speaking,
Yeah.
I know the answer, but I want you to like kind of speak to that a little bit. Because I know a lot of people think that, like, God, that just seems so daunting.
Here's what I would say: is your time's going to pass anyway.
Right.
Time's going to pass anyway, and you're not going to get any closer to that goal until you decide that you're worthy of it, and that you're willing to do the work for it, and that you're willing to get your mind behind it. And yes, it's a really long way, but you didn't graduate undergrad or graduate school or get a job or learn your skill in 60, 90 days or 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
Like for those of us that went through public education, you went to school for 13 years, K through 12. You didn't get that high school diploma in 1 year.
Right.
And so it's reminding that, but I would also add, you have to find joy in other ways. You need to find joy that's not based on the weight lost. Joy in the fact you showed up for that workout. Joy in the fact you did your walk. Joy in the fact you drank your water. Joy in the fact you did that mindset homework that you avoided for 6 months. And you did your journaling and you allowed yourself to realize, oh, no wonder I don't want to lose the weight because I am the funny fat friend.
Mm.
And my identity will shift in that point. And that's hard. And like everybody has their reason, but it's like you have to figure out what the why is. And it's okay to be like, gosh, that's a long time. And it is. I will not say it's a short amount of time. But you're not going to get any closer to it if you don't start and talk bad to yourself that, well, it's forever. I might as well not do it. But you're going to get to that time anyway.
Right.
Like, show up for yourself, do the work, or realize why you don't feel you're worthy of it.
Yeah.
And if you need help, get help too at the same time. One thing I've learned is there's nobody self-made. People will probably disagree with this, but somebody helped us along the way. Somebody
Absolutely.
inspired us along the way. Somebody held their hand out. I would not be here with where I am today if somebody didn't like, hey, let me help you. Hey, girl, are you struggling? Dude, why are you working so hard? That's not necessary. Like, that happens. People will tell you you're working too hard and be like, this can be done easier. Like, sometimes there is an easier path.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with being lazy. Just figure out how to be lazy in your own superpower to make it
Right.
happen.
You know what's interesting too is that as you're speaking, I'm thinking on behalf of like what I've heard, what us as girlfriends have talked about, that kind of thing. And so much of the conversation about health and wellness lies in physically looking and being a specific
Yep.
size, right? Like I
Mhm.
need to look like this and be this size, and
Mhm.
having that distortion as an ideal of what health and wellness is.
Mhm.
So how do we combat that? How do we have that conversation? Because on the other side of that are people who are, you know, plus size, let's say, and they're like,
Mhm.
I'm loving my body, I'm in, and they're
Mhm.
embracing this thing. But are they essentially embracing being unhealthy kind of thing? And how do we kind of like bring that together where the real focus is on health and wellness and not just the physicality of it? Because there are women who are more plus size that are actually very, very healthy inside and emotionally as well, would you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it would be irresponsible to ignore that is our reality. But society values beauty. We see that through our fashion choices, how we do our makeup, I want you to open up your phone and scroll real quick. How many pretty things are on there?
Right.
You know, like it would be dumb to say we don't value beauty. But I would also say you define beauty. You define what's beautiful to you. Let me give an example. For a long time there was, it was like Kate Mosses and the Paris Hiltons of the world and things like that. And then when we had Jennifer Lopez come on to the scene, like she's beautiful and things of that sort. So like it comes in all shapes and sizes, but you define what's healthy and wellness to you. But you also have to be realistic with your genetics and your genome and things of that sort. And I think it's part of like self-worth, but self-acceptance. And you can love
100%.
yourself now and still want to be better. You can love
100%.
yourself now and realize, that may not be the healthiest choice for me. But I have found with my clients, when they finally learn to love themselves is when they start to shift into the thing that they want.
Right.
They can't guilt or shame themselves into there. They actually have to learn to go, I do love myself. And I love myself enough to do better for myself. And to
Yeah,
show up at that point.
absolutely.
But
Love
health is
yourself enough
defined.
to
Yeah.
trust yourself. I think that
Oh,
we can
man.
pretend like I'm good in this body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I really
Yeah.
embrace it. I love a woman who really embraces her body,
Absolutely.
no matter what it looks like. I love when I see a confident woman. But I will say this, is you got to be honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
You can be loving that body, but if your blood pressure is high and you're not feeling well and you're not digesting food and you're not having regular bowel movement,
Absolutely.
you know when something is not right with you.
Correct.
And you have to trust that.
Mm-hmm.
Be the most beautiful self, but be it in a way that you're being honest with yourself about where you're at so you can live
Absolutely.
with, I had a gentleman yesterday say to me, I am not obsessed with living to be 100 years old. I'm more obsessed with living my longevity healthy. Like what's the duration of my health?
Absolutely.
Because he's like, without that as my focus, and he's like, you'll hear people say this all the time, I want to live for a long time. And he's like, I just want to live as healthy as I can for a
Yeah.
long time before everything starts to shut down. And it was just kind of like interesting because that was his framework. He used to be very, he was very overweight. He had a very unhealthy lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, food, everything. All the addictions, he had them. And he realized, forget about living forever. I am like falling apart.
Yep.
And it just became this, like you talk about the dominoes, the domino effect. His health started to decline, but emotionally who he was started to decline. And then that triggered into his wealth declining. And it just became this catastrophic thing that really, he had no choice but to make a lifestyle shift.
Yeah. And it's radical responsibility at that point of like, these are the choices that got me here, and being okay with that and realizing you can choose better.
Right.
What you choose then does not mean you choose now. Yes, there are some that have snowball effects. It's like saying, oh, well, I filed for bankruptcy and it's like never going to show up on my credit. Yes, I'm sorry. That good is. There's probably some ways to get it off. But like, you have to acknowledge the choices you made, but that doesn't mean you have to keep making that choice.
Right.
And you're entitled to change your mind anytime. My client told that to me one time, and man, that was a game changer, because we were talking about at that point in time that people always asked her if she was going to have kids. She goes, no, but I'm entitled to change my mind.
I love that.
And I just stuck with that. And I'm like, you're entitled to change your mind at any time.
Your life is not static.
Correct.
Just like your why can change, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, man, there's so much. But we are running out of time here. But I do want to ask one last question. And then as we conclude, I would love for you to also share where people can get a hold of you if they have questions on nutrition, on wellness. I mean, you have so much knowledge from a personal stance, and you've invested time and education into this. And so I feel like you are someone who is of incredible value for someone who wants to take this journey.
Thank you.
So my last question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who has successfully lost weight but is struggling to maintain their new lifestyle? How can they transition from focusing solely on weight loss to prioritizing overall health and well-being?
I would go back to the foundations, like hands down, but also let go of what you did to get there may not look like what you have to do now. It's kind of like, let me give an analogy. I live on analogies, if you guys haven't figured out in this talk, seasons. So it's like saying that I'm in the season of, I just had, like, this is an example, I don't have tiny children, but if I just had tiny children, I would not have that expectation of me starting a full-time job and doing this and doing that, because my whole life just shifted. My hormones shifted. I just brought these tiny humans in the world. So I am in the season of taking care of that and entering motherhood. You're entering the season of that constant progress to figuring out how to maintain.
Yeah.
And you also have to let go that maybe it looks different. What you did to get there may not take as much to maintain. That's like one of the biggest, like, best kept secrets in the fitness industry that some people forget, is that once you've done enough work, and each body's different, it actually takes way less work to maintain it, and you can come in and come out, because the beautiful thing about fitness is it's neural pathways. You always have those neural pathways to come back to. Your body will know how to build muscle. Your body will understand how that works as long as it feels safe to be able to lose weight or anything. And be open to trying new things and realizing that less can be better. And go back to your foundations. Are you sleeping? Are you managing your stress? Are you moving your body in a joyful way? Not just with the intention of losing weight, but joyfully. Is it in ways that's going to support your body and your goals long term? Are you fueling your body nutritiously? Because that's the biggest thing we see from weight loss, is we have to start to increase calories. And that is a big mind twister. Is like, oh, that means I actually have to eat more. Yes, baby, you have to eat more.
Yeah.
Because your body has to be able to maintain, but then it also has to be able to support any other activities that you're doing. Like, we burn calories just being, much less before we move. And so just be open to it looking different and go through the trial and error. You
Trust the
learn
process,
through doing it. You don't learn getting there, you learn through the process and doing it, like you said.
Absolutely. And how can they reach you, Miss Kelsey?
Absolutely. I'm Kelsey Lane Fitness on all the platforms. I also have a podcast as well called Be Unapologetically You Radio that is launching in April of 2024. So if you have not listened, it's going to be out any day now. I'm super excited. And you can always just shoot me a message on any of the platforms or check out my website, KelseyLaneDavidson.com. And I have coaching for one-on-one for fitness. I consult for nutrition programs. So if you need a fitness coach in your nutrition program, I'm the girl to help you. And just reach out. Happy to help.
Love it. She is, I'm telling you, she is truly, truly valuable. And if you're looking for someone who has a one shoe fits all approach where she's going to listen to you, hear you, not just with what's going on inside your body, but also listen to what's happening inside your mind. If you are ready to take this journey and you've been afraid of it, you think it's impossible, take the first step and make the call. Invest in yourself. It's so important. I want to again thank you for being here. I think you're truly a gem. And I thank you all for watching. I will put all of her contact information in the subscription below. Again, do not forget to hit the subscription button.
Absolutely.
And thank you again for watching. Until next time, ciao.
Bye.